Following video will go through common lab equipment and their functions. First piece of common lab equipment is the Bunsen burner. The Bunsen burner is used to heat objects. The second piece of lab equipment is the glass slide. The glass slide is used to hold objects for examination under a microscope. Here we have a mortar and pestle. Mortar and pestle are used to crush objects into a powder. So you have the bowl, and then you have this stick-like object, and then you just grind up that object into a powder. Next we have test tubes and a test tube rack. The test tubes are used to hold, mix, or heat small amounts of liquids. You do not use a test tube to measure a volume of liquid, but it is good for holding small quantities of liquids. Test tube racks are used to hold test tubes. In fact, test tubes should always be placed in test tube racks and never placed directly on a desk, as they can roll and fall off and break when they hit the ground. Next we have beakers. Beakers come in varying sizes and can be used to hold, mix, and heat liquids. Now, we never store liquids in a beaker. They're just meant for temporary storage as we are using that liquid. Next up, we have a ring clamp. So here we have this metal object here, that has this ring at one end and then a clamp at the other end, hence ring clamp. Ring clamps will attach to a retort stand. It's used to hold objects over a Bunsen burner while being heated. Next we have a retort stand. This is what the ring clamp will attach to. So you have this base here, this rod here, tall metal rod, that the clamp part of the ring clamp will attach to at varying heights. The retort stand is used to hold clamps and will provide support while objects are being heated. So you have your ring clamp that goes here, you might place your beaker up here, and then your Bunsen burner goes on the base to heat up that beaker. When doing any experiment, you should wear goggles. Goggles will protect your eyes from chemical splashes and must be worn at all times during a lab. Next up is a heating pad. This is a wire mesh with some insulation in a circular shape. So a heating pad is placed on a ring clamp and provides a stable base while objects are being heated. Next we have a watch glass. Watch glasses will come in different sizes. A watch glass is used to allow small amounts of liquid to evaporate. So you can put a small amount of liquid in the watch glass. It has a concave shape to it that allows the water to pool in the center, and then over time that liquid will evaporate, and then you can observe whatever is left behind. Or you can watch for how long to see how long it takes that liquid to evaporate. Next up is the Erlenmeyer flask. Erlenmeyer flasks come in varying sizes that can be used for mixing or storing chemicals. It has a narrow top that allows it to be stoppered. So Erlenmeyer flask can come in sizes as small as 50 milliliters, so you can put in 50 milliliters of liquid, up to a liter here, or even more liquid depending on the size of the Erlenmeyer. So to go with the volumetric flask, you have these rubber stoppers, which are used to seal the open ends of test tubes and flasks. Next we have a set of tongs that are specifically referred to as crucible tongs. And crucible tongs are used to hold hot crucibles. They have this groove within them that allows you to hold the bowl part of the crucible and these narrow ends here that allow you to grip the lid of a crucible. So here are beaker tongs, continuing with tongs, and beaker tongs are used to hold hot beakers. So after a beaker is being heated, you don't want to grab it with your hand and pick it up because it might cause some burns, and we're always thinking lab safety. So you want to use beaker tongs to transport or move hot beakers. So they are specifically shaped to fit around that curved shape of a beaker. Last set of tongs, I believe, are the test tube tongs. Test tube tongs are used to hold hot test tubes. Similar to hot beakers, you do not want to hold hot test tubes with your hands. So these set of tongs are small and specifically designed to hold on to that small shape of a test tube. Next up are graduated cylinders. Graduated cylinders come in varying sizes and are used to measure precise amounts of a liquid. Volume is read in milliliters, not grams. Graduated cylinders are the only equipment, well, for the most part, that you want to use to measure the volume of liquid. So you never use a beaker and you never use an Erlenmeyer flask. There are graduation markings on beakers and Erlenmeyer flasks, but those are not accurate volume markings. They are more approximate. There's a high degree of uncertainty with those volume markings. Graduated cylinders are specifically designed and made to measure those volumes of liquids to a high degree of accuracy. Next up is a thermometer. Thermometer is used to measure the temperature of an object. Next we have a flint lighter. A flint lighter contains a piece of flint with contained within this silver dome here to protect you from spark that is created as that flint is moved over this jagged material here. And so we use a flint lighter to light a Bunsen burner. Bunsen burners have natural gas coming through them, and that's what's used to create the flame, and the flint lighter provides a spark to ignite that gas. Next up are tweezers, and tweezers are used to hold and transfer small solids. Next up are eyedroppers, or medicine droppers, and they are used to dispense small amounts of liquids. So they're good for adding drops of liquids, like you can never accurately measure a volume of a liquid with an eyedropper, and it doesn't give you a controlled amount of liquid within a drop. So it's really for just dispensing small amounts of liquid if you're not concerned about volume. Next up is a funnel, and a funnel is used to pour liquids into containers and minimize spills. Next we have brushes, and these have varying sizes to them, and these are used to clean dirty glassware. So once in a while, glassware like beakers and Erlenmeyer flasks and test tubes need a scrubbing, and these special brushes help with that. Next up we have a scoopula. A scoopula is used to transfer small amounts of solids. So usually when you're taking out a solid from a container and measuring that on a weigh scale, you don't want to pour it out, you don't want to dig it out with your fingers. You want to use the scoopula here. This end here can control the amount of solid that you get. So if you need a small amount, you can get a little bit on there. If you need a large amount, you can scoop out a large quantity of solid here to weigh. Next up we have spot plates. So these are plates that have these depressions in them. In this case there's 15 on this particular plate. They usually have 12, this one has 15. And spot plates are used to mix small amounts of chemicals in them. So rather than mixing something in a beaker or in an Erlenmeyer flask, if you have a small amount of liquid, we're talking like a few milliliters of liquid, you can use a spot plate to add those chemicals here to mix them and observe whatever reaction may happen. Next up is a stirring rod. A stirring rod is used to stir liquids. And that is the end of the common chemicals that you find in a lab.